All right, welcome to the Wrestling Angle. I am your host, Chad Z, and we're going to talk about AEW Dynamite tonight and their big signing that they had today. First off, let's talk about the signing of Paul Wight. This one came out of left field. I was sitting there watching AEW Dark from last night. I was trying to get caught up, and I got a text message from one of my buddies saying, "Did you see that AEW just signed Paul Wight?" And I was like, totally floored. I couldn't believe it. What a big deal this is for AEW. And what a big loss it is for WWE, because Big Show was a staple there, along with Undertaker and Kane, and they just basically lost all three staples, or veterans in the locker room. So and they don't have Cena, and who knows when he's going to come back. So, but we're not here. We're not here to talk about WWE. We're here to talk about AEW and AEW Dynamite. What a phenomenal show it was tonight, guys. From top to bottom, from the very first match to the main event. The main event blew the doors off the show. And it went right up to the TV time limit, which the announcers really put over. So my hat's off to Ray Phoenix and Lance Archer. The beginning of the night started off a little rough for these guys, but at the end, both of them they both showed that when you go up against a good opponent, you can both come out looking strong in the end of the match. So we'll talk about that a little later. The very first match started with Jon Moxley went up against Ryan Nemeth, who is, as everybody knows, Dolph Ziggler's brother. He's Ryan Nemeth, he's a great talker on the mic, but his wrestling skills need a little bit of work. So, not that he's a bad worker, it's just that I think he tries to be too much like his brother, and he really should be more like himself rather than Dolph. So, Moxley ended up defeating Nemeth, and then afterwards, Jon Moxley cut one of the best promos that I've seen in a long time, hyping up the barbed wire exploding death match coming up with him and Kenny Omega. And this guy has got it all. He can wrestle, he can talk, and he was a big signing for AEW, and it's done wonders for his career. So hats off to this guy, and obviously he doesn't mind being in the very first match to start off the show, and it set the tone for the entire show. So both those guys, both Moxley and Nemeth, should be proud, and Moxley especially for his promo after the match. So then we got a video package recap of Moxley and the Omega feud. They talked about they showed their barbed wire board match that they had at one of the pay-per-views, one of the very first pay-per-views. And I mean, that match was sick. I can just imagine what this exploding death match is going to be like. So, you know, anybody that doesn't know what one of these matches looks like, go on YouTube, type in Onita death match, and you can see how this match should be properly done. Because Onita is the king of the death matches. So I know in a previous show I hyped up Terry Funk versus Cactus Jack. That was one of the very first barbed wire exploding death matches. The finish in the match ended up getting botched. So if you want to see what it really looks like, go watch an Onita death match. So next up, we got the Young Bucks walking in with their mom and dad, and the mom and dad take a picture of the Bucks on the semi truck. Their pictures are on the back doors. You know, nice moment. I mean, we've seen what they call Mama and Papa Buck during BTE, the early versions of BTE, and they just started coming into the show again. You can tell that their parents really support them, which is cool. These guys have busted their ass to get where they need to get, and you know, you want to see some outstanding matches, not just their matches in AEW. Go back and watch their matches in PWG. I mean, these guys ruled PWG in the tag team division. And if you want to see a match that put Candice LeRae on the map, go back and watch. I believe it's called. It's PWG's special match that they do. They actually nailed Candice with super kicks, and on the bottom of their boots were thumbtacks. So this is one that anybody that's seen Candice on the Indies, she was selling a shirt, and it had her face just in like completely covered in blood. So it was pretty cool. And then we get Team Taz with Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. They go up against the Varsity Blondes of Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. You know, I have been pretty tough on this kid, Griff Garrison, but I'll tell you what, him and Brian Pillman did a hell of a job during this match, and they really looked. There were a lot of false finishes, and they really looked like they were going to pull it out and beat these guys. But they ended up getting defeated. At the end of the match, there was a big... the lights went out, and then all of a sudden, a video played with an SUV dragging a body bag behind them. And the SUV stopped, and Darby Allin ripped his way out of the body bag and shows that he is still alive. Then we get Sting's entrance, and he comes out with a body bag, dragging a body bag, and the announcers put over the fact that, you know, that maybe Darby's in there, and it turns out it was actually Taz's son, Hook. And Taz was on commentary during this, and you could hear Taz, I don't know if he was supposed to say this or whatever, but he said "holy shit" on the mic, and then Sting holds up Hook, and then all of a sudden he points the bat to up up in the stands, and Darby Allin rappels down to the ring, which is a pretty cool effect. And he had the skateboard in his hand, and both him and Sting basically came in and cleared the ring at Team Taz. And I know there was some concerns last week about Sting taking that power bomb from Brian Cage. Sting, they made a big deal about it on Twitter and all the news sites that Sting has been cleared to wrestle. So, and he actually looked pretty good tonight. He did the Stinger Splash, and then he also did the Stinger Death Drop on Brian Cage. So he looked pretty good. The only thing that I'm hoping is that he either puts on some muscle and he doesn't wear the shirt like he did in his like he's done in the past. So I mean, either way, whether he wears the shirt or he doesn't wear the shirt, AEW's got Sting and WWE doesn't. So so that's that. But I really want to put over Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison. These guys really busted their ass and showed that they can be a good tag team. And then hopefully somewhere down the line, AEW gives these guys a push towards a tag team title match. But I think that what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get the title off the Bucks, which I hope they do. I hope that at the pay-per-view, I hope MJF and Chris Jericho, they beat the Bucks for the belts. So, and then maybe we can get some of these other tag teams in there and get them to get a push. So the next match, or actually what we did was they went to a interview segment with Tony Schiavone, and he interviews Kip Sabian, Penelope Ford, and Miro, and they're talking about the wedding and how Miro's mad with the fact that Orange Cassidy, and he's still calling Chuck Taylor Charles the butler, how they ruined the wedding. And you can tell that Tony Schiavone didn't want to be there doing this interview because I think he thought it was going to turn into a complete shit show. Then what would end up happening is that Kip Sabian said that this is a complete joke. Penelope didn't say anything. Miro did most of the talking. And he says that he forgives Charles, and he's trying to convince Charles to come back home. And what ends up happening is while Miro's talking, someone walks in and hands Tony Schiavone a piece of paper. Excuse me. And it says, "Will you wrestle us at Revolution?" And then it says, check yes, no, or something else. And then what ended up happening, this was pretty funny, Miro ended up ripping up the note, shoving the note in his mouth, and then spitting it at Tony Schiavone. And you can tell Schiavone was a little pissed off about that. But then Miro has said this has turned into some childish game that these two guys are playing. So, just to stay on this topic for a little bit, I've noticed on like the websites and even on Twitter that people are complaining the fact that Orange Cassidy's pretty much fizzled out. And I don't think he's fizzled out. I think what's happening with him is that they're moving him down to the mid card, and then putting him in a match with Miro and Kip Sabian. These guys are main event guys, and Orange Cassidy will be back up in the main event. He's not going to be facing Chris Jericho, but he will be back up in the main event. I mean, not all these guys can stay at the top. I mean, they have to give other people on the card shots at being in the main event and getting a big push. So, this is a good way to get both Kip Sabian and Miro over a little bit better. And then whether they beat Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy, I would love to see Trent get involved in this match, even though he's injured. But, the concern about Orange Cassidy being pushed down the card, don't worry, guys. I mean, they're going to be back. He's going to be back up in the main event. If not in the main event, he's going to be in contention for the TNT title. So that's that. And then we went to Jake Hager versus Brandon Cutler, and this match stemmed from the week before, where Jake Hager beat the crap out of Brandon Cutler when he tried to come in and save the Young Bucks. This match was a good back and forth. Brandon Cutler did some pretty cool high spots, but it was basically set up an attack that was in the back on the Young Bucks' dad. And at the end of this match, the Inner Circle all came out and beat down Brandon Cutler. The Young Bucks went to make the save, and then all of a sudden, up on the video wall, we saw Jericho basically and MJF basically beating the crap out of Papa Buck. And they bloodied him up pretty good. So whether he took it was real blood or not, it didn't look like it. But they slammed him against the truck a couple times, and he ended up getting busted open. And then when they're in the back, the Bucks went to go run back there, and they didn't get there in time. Nick stayed with his dad and the ambulance crew, and then Matt ran after the Jericho and MJF, and he just basically missed him. MJF was up on the top of the truck, and Jericho had the door open, and they went speeding off. And Matt ended up going back to his dad. And then we went to a commercial break, and we saw Papa Buck being loaded into the ambulance. Then we get a video played of next week's match between Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet versus Shaquille O'Neal and Jade Cargill. I originally thought that this match was going to take place at the pay-per-view, but I guess they are stacking next week's show. So that's one of the matches for next week's show. And then we get Hangman Page went up against Isaiah Cassidy. This was with Matt Hardy, and then Hybrid 2 was out there. This is just basically, it was kind of a filler match to advance the storyline between Hangman Page and Matt Hardy. The Dark Order ended up coming out and getting Matt Hardy thrown out of the match or from ringside, and but Hybrid 2 was still out there, and they ended up attacking Hangman Page at the end of the match, and the Dark Order made the save. And what ended up happening too is that Matt Hardy cut a promo over the PA, and he said he was going to hurt the Dark Order because Page cares so much about it. And then he came on the ramp, and he had Alan Angels and tossed him through a ringside table, which was actually a pretty good bump. And he is number 5 in Dark Order. So that's that. We get Alex Marvez catching up with Kenny Omega and Don Callis. They're in the back or in some type of workshop, and Don Callis says that they're working on the Moxley extermination chamber. This segment really bombed. You could tell that they shot this last week because Kenny was still wearing his goofy boots that he was wearing last week that looked like elf shoes, and he had that shirt on which reminded me of the puffy shirt from Seinfeld. But they had some guys in the background working on the board, the exploding board, and Kenny basically says that if he wants things done right, he needs to do it himself. So it was just a very strange segment. So they recapped Monday's AEW Women's Eliminator Tournament matches, which I watched today. If you guys get a chance, go back and watch this on YouTube. There were some outstanding matches on there. One of them happened to be Britt Baker in her match, and there were 2 Japanese matches. I'm not going to say who they are because I butcher their names. One of them happened to be Aja Kong. If you get a chance, watch that match. It is phenomenal. I mean, the Japanese women were completely different than the women over here in America, and it's good to see that they're getting the spotlight in this tournament. So next up, we get the AEW Women's Eliminator Tournament second round. Nyla Rose versus Dr. Britt Baker. This was a really good match. A lot of back and forth action, a lot of false finishes. Nyla Rose ended up defeating Britt Baker, which kind of surprised me, because everybody's been saying that this is Britt Baker's tournament, and this is her chance to get that AEW title. And I was surprised to see that she lost. But it was a very good match. We haven't seen Nyla Rose. We've only seen her on Dark, and we've seen her in some BTE stuff. She really showed that she's a good worker. So, and for one of the things that my buddy Gary and I talked about is that how different Nyla Rose is to Nia Jax, because they're basically both the the same size. And Nyla Rose really busts her ass in that ring, and you can tell that she puts in the work. So, and not to say that Nia Jax doesn't put in the work, but there's just two different styles, and I if I were to pick one of them over the other, it would be Nyla Rose. So, but I was really shocked to see that Nyla Rose did defeat Britt Baker here. I really thought that it was going to be Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa in the finals, and we will see this Sunday on Bleacher Report, because they're going to be showing the tournament where Thunder Rosa goes up against Rio. So I would still like to see, I'd like to see Thunder Rosa beat Rio, and then we have Thunder Rosa versus Nia Rose in this in the tournament finals. But I thought Britt Baker was going to be in there, so anything can basically happen. And one thing I wanted to mention too. I was thinking about this today while I was watching AEW Dark and then the women's tournament. You really need to watch all the shows. If you're a fan of AEW, then you need to watch all the shows, because there is some outstanding wrestling going on all these shows. I mean, the tournament, Dark, AEW Dynamite, and then they've got a third show that's going to be coming out, that's going to be hosted by Tony Schiavone and also commentated by Paul Wight. But they made sure that they mentioned that Paul Wight's also signed to a wrestling contract too. So not only is he going to be a commentator, but he's also going to be a worker too. So, which makes sense. I mean, you're not going to sign a guy like this. It's like Sting. You're not going to sign Sting and not have him in a match. So, whether he's fit to go or not, Big Show right now is probably in the best shape of his career, and AEW finally has their big man. Although I would love to see a match between Paul Wight and Lance Archer. I mean, that guy can go too. So we get a recap, or not a recap. They talk about the matches that are going to be on Dynamite next week. So we're going to get Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet versus Shaquille O'Neal and Jade Cargill. I'm assuming that one's going to be the main event. You're going to get FTR and Tully Blanchard going up against the Jurassic Express. Tully Blanchard is going to step into the ring. They said that he hasn't wrestled since 1989. I'd have to go back and look on that, when it was that he wrestled in ECW, because that was the last time he wrestled, I believe. Or it might have been that horrible Legends pay-per-view that they had, that was put on by some carny promoter in Los Angeles. So we're going to get the AEW Women's Eliminator Tournament Finals, which I really thought was going to take place on the pay-per-view. Paul Wight's going to speak. He didn't make an appearance tonight, but he's going to be making an appearance tomorrow, or next week. We're going to get Dark Order with Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, Allen Angels versus Matt Hardy, Private Party, and the Hybrid 2. And then we're going to get Preston Vance, who is 10 in the Dark Order, versus Max Caster for a spot in the Revolution ladder title match. Or for the TNT, for a shot at the TNT title. And then they run down the Revolution card. They talk about Sheeta versus the women's tournament winner, Hangman Page versus Matt Hardy, Team Taz versus Sting and Darby Allin. They're going to have a Casino Tag Team Battle Royale, and whoever wins that match gets a shot at the AEW Tag Team belts. We're going to get the Young Bucks versus MJF and Chris Jericho, and then they're going to have the Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley in an exploding barbed wire death match. So I'm really interested to see how they pull this off, whether it's going to be at Daly's place or they're going to have it in the Jaguars stadium. I would think it would have to be in the stadium with some fans in the stands, but that's just me. I mean, anybody that's seen one of these things go off, I mean, there is an explosion, and the ring basically catches fire, and there's a lot of smoke and all that stuff. So I wouldn't think they would be able to do it in Daly's place, but we will see how that gets pulled off. And then we get to our main event. Lance Archer with Jake Roberts goes up against Rey Fenix. If you're going to watch one match from AEW Dynamite tonight, watch this one, guys. This is a prime example of two guys that know how to work. You got Lance Archer, who is a huge, huge guy, and Rey Fenix, which is basically the underdog. He's a little bit bigger than Rey Mysterio, but he flies around that ring like nobody else in wrestling right now. He actually reminds me a lot of Rey Mysterio when Rey was in WCW and his stuff that he did in ECW. So he did a move where both him and Archer were on the top rope, and he did a Spanish fly, and it really looked like that he was going to botch it, but they did a nice job covering it up, and he fell to the second rope, and Archer pulled him back up, and they did a Spanish fly. So Lance Archer ended up winning that match, which allows him to be in the ladder match for the TNT title shot. And like I said before, this match basically stole the show. And they did a nice job. The commentators did a nice job saying that they were getting close to the time limit. And just as the time limit was going to expire, Archer hit the blackout to win and advance the Revolution. So, all in all, great show tonight. I haven't gotten a chance to watch NXT. When I get done doing this stream, I'm going to go and watch NXT and maybe have a show about it tomorrow. That one will be held during the day. I'm not going to do another night stream. If I do it, it'll probably be around 11:30 or noon. So depending on when I get everything settled and get everything working on the computer and stuff. So, but that's AEW Dynamite tonight. I'm really looking forward to the pay-per-view coming up. I think they've got a lot of great matches. I'm interested to see what they do with this exploding death match. To see, I have no doubt that Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley are going to do a phenomenal job in the match with their moves. I'm a little bit concerned with the fact how they're going to pull this off with the ring blowing up. And hopefully they can do it the right way. Let's see if there's any news. What we got going on in the news. The new AEW, the new AEW show is going to be called Evolution, and it's going to be debuting with on March 15th, and it's going to have Tony Schiavone and Paul Wight as the commentators. So kind of interested to see what they do with this. The show is going to be on YouTube, which is nice because you don't have to worry about commercials, and the show runs. Anybody that watches Dark sees how the show runs pretty smoothly. So it's one match right after another. It's 2 hours long, but it doesn't really seem like it's 2 hours. I don't want to give anything away for NXT because I want to watch the show and be able to talk about it. So we won't give any NXT news. Let's talk about, you know what, why I'm thinking about it, let's talk about Impact from last night. I thought that the show was really good, even though the ratings didn't show it. I'm not going to talk about any of the matches, but I will talk about one thing that I didn't like. I don't like the fact that Scott D'Amore reinstated the TNA title. There's no need to have two heavyweight championship titles in one promotion. I don't like the fact that WWE has a title for each one of their shows. I never have. You can rename it whatever you want. You can call it the Universal title, but basically it's the SmackDown title. And it was the Raw title before it got moved to SmackDown. I just don't like the fact that they did that. You don't need two heavyweight championship or heavyweight titles in one promotion. Plus, it doesn't look good, and it doesn't make the Impact. It doesn't elevate the Impact title at all. And if you want Moose to be your heavyweight champion, then put the Impact title on him. He's been carrying the TNA title around with him for months, and then all of a sudden Scott D'Amore comes out and he reinstates the belt. That's just ridiculous. There's no reason for that. So that's one thing I didn't like. But all in all, the show I thought was pretty good. It wasn't as good as the week before, but they did a nice job capitalizing on the stories that they had. I will talk about one match though that I got to see. I watched the whole show, but the one that really stood out to me was Jake something versus Cody Deaner. Cody Deaner has really changed up his look. He's basically shaved his head and now he's wearing actual tights. He's with Eric Young now, and you can tell that Cody Deaner has really put in the work. He's dropped some weight and put on some muscle, and he was a good worker before, but now he looks like a wrestler. He's not like the cookie cutter where they come out in jeans and all that type of stuff. And Jake Something is a guy that I've actually seen wrestle in person. He's really bulked up too, and he's a great worker. So, and he can talk on the mic too. So, once they give him the okay to do that, to talk on the mic, you'll see that he has a good promo. So one other thing I wanted to talk about, and let me see if I can find it on my Facebook page. I thought it was really interesting, and just bear with me, guys. Okay, here it is. Okay. This was originally reported by Big Sean from Closed Fist, and I thought it was very interesting. I'm just going to read it. Indie promoters announced territory championship. In an exclusive video presented by the Wrestling Estate, 3 independent promotions have announced the creation of a new title. The Territory Championship will be defended at ECWA, Synergy Pro Wrestling, and UWA Elite, as well as other promotions to be announced in the future. The inaugural champion will be crowned at the 25th Annual Super 8 Tournament on May 1st at the New Jersey Dugout in Morganville, New Jersey. It says people want promotions to start working together, said a representative, Ryan Kavanaugh from ECWA. It's better for the fans, the wrestlers, and the business itself. Qualifying matches will take place at ECWA Night of the Unusual Matches on April 3rd at the New Jersey Dugout. UWA Elites setting the standard on April 17th at the South River VFW, and Synergy's return to the Monster Factory on April 24th. It's an opportunity for not just promotions, not just wrestlers, but for wrestling fans to really help bring together the independent wrestling circuit just a little bit closer under one tight-knit umbrella, said Dave Swan, owner of UWA Elite. The announcement was teased earlier this week when Wrestling Estate learned that these indie promotions would be working together, mirroring what's been happening on TV with AEW, Impact Wrestling, and New Japan. The Wrestling Estate will have exclusive coverage of the Territory Championship, bringing you live results of every defense and in-depth profiles of the champions and challengers. So, my take on this is that this could really go back to the territory days. And not so much the WWE or WWF, but more or less the NWA. And that was that each promotion would have their own champion, whether it be, let's just use World Class for an example. They would have their American Heavyweight Championship, and then the NWA belt would be brought in as a special attraction. So with these so far 3 promotions working together, we could see the reformation of the territory days. Now, it's got to be done right, and all the promotions that are involved need to work together. And that's a big problem on the independent scene, because everybody is basically out for themselves. I had brought up this point to Brett, the owner of ESW, and I had said that it would be nice to see a independent wrestling supercard, or couldn't you basically use these independent shows like they did in the territory days? And he said that it would never work, because the indies are basically every person for themselves. So, which I understood at the time. It was just a thought, but it looks like that this is going to become a reality with these 3 promotions, and I hope other promotions get involved in this, because you could have your home promotion champion and then have a special attraction and have this territory championship come in and be defended. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan, because there's a lot going on. It's not just WWE out there anymore. It's AEW, it's Impact, it's the Indies. There's some phenomenal workers out there on the Indies, and the only way they get showcased is by fans going to the show. So go support your local promotions. I do it here in Western New York by supporting ESW. I'm a huge ESW fan, and I love it when they bring in other indie guys from different promotions, because it gives me the opportunity to see these guys that I've only seen on video or DVD or streaming. And that's another thing. There's tons of streaming services out there. There's highspots.com. There's the WWE that is showing not only WWE stuff, but they're showing Progress. You can see Progress stuff on High Spots. There's RF Video now that they promote indie shows. There's New Japan Pro Wrestling. If you're into Japanese wrestling, there's a lot of outlets out there. And there's even another thing that I saw that I have on my Fire Stick. It's called Pluto TV. And if you want to watch some of the wrestling that some indie promotions, there's a whole channel dedicated to, 1, Impact Wrestling, and then 2, it's dedicated to independent wrestling. And they show mostly Beyond Revolt. I'm trying to think the promotion that's run by Sammy Callahan. I mean, it's older shows, but there's all different types of shows out there, and it's not just WWE. I get, I get bent out of shape when I see people on Twitter, which, by the way, my opinion on Twitter, I mean, I love Twitter to a point, but right now, I use Twitter for news, to talk back and forth to wrestling fans. But I'll say it again, that Twitter is a cesspool for just a bunch of crap out there that people think that they can just say whatever they want because they're behind a keyboard, and don't take into account that there are people on the other end that read these comments, and when you say someone's a shitty wrestler, that's a person you're talking about. And it's basically, Twitter is basically what is going on in the world today. You know what I mean? So, that's enough of that. I get on my soapbox about that. I've gotten to the point where I don't even use Facebook anymore other than to promote this show, because there's a lot of negativity on there, and I don't even watch the news because there's so much damn negativity. If you want to have negativity encompass your life, that's great, but don't force it on other people. So I found myself muting a lot of people on Facebook because these are people that I considered friends, and I just can't take their negativity. So, but that's here nor there. I mean, you can use Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, to watch wrestling, to get your news. That's what I do. I spent the whole day today basically sending news out to my Facebook page and watching AEW, getting caught up on AEW's tournament, the women's tournament, and watching AEW Dark. I even watched a little bit of New Japan too. So, New Japan Strong, which is another good show, by the way. And then I read that New Japan could be going back to Access TV, which is nice because it gives them exposure here in the U.S. So that's that. So anyways, I went a little bit over an hour tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining me. I got myself a new follower on Facebook. I seem to be getting more followers on Facebook than I am on Twitch, which is fine. Any way you guys want to follow this, whether it's YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, that's great. I appreciate all the support. But I wanted to give a shout out to two people. One being RJ, and I have Chowdhury. I apologize, RJ, if I butchered your last name. And then Dave Hamlin, who happens to be my father-in-law. So I appreciate that, Dad, for following. the wrestling angle. So I'm getting some support from the family, which is great. I also want to give a big shout out to my family. As you guys know, I've mentioned it in the past on this show that I am currently unemployed, so and have been since November. So I want to give a big shout out to my wife, who is allowing me to sit home and look for a job, and helping me find a job. I haven't had any luck as of yet, but she's a real big supporter of me, and she's my rock. I want to give a big shout out to my kids who give me the opportunity to do this and to be their dad, which is the best thing that has ever happened to me. So they keep me grounded too. A shout out to my daughter who watches wrestling with me. I know I have stated in the past that it bugs me the fact that she talks during the matches and whatever else, but it gives me great pleasure to allow her to watch this and experience this like I did when I was a kid. And she's not as big into it as I was when I was her age, but it's great being a dad and being able to share this with your kids. And even my son has sat down and watched a couple shows with me too. So he's not into it as much. He's more into magic and all that good stuff. So, but he's a little bit younger than my daughter. My daughter's 13. My son is 8, and she understands the storylines a lot better than he does. So, I'm sure if there was a character out there that did magic, he would totally be into it. So, but I wanted to give them a shout out to all my friends supporting me during this. My friend Pete and my friend Gary, who has his own show. I wouldn't be able to go to these shows if it wasn't for these guys, because I sure the hell wouldn't go to the shows by myself. So it's no fun when you're there just by yourself. It's good to have interaction with people that are around you. Although there are a bunch of guys that I know at the shows. And Brett, the owner of ESW, does a nice job getting us all to sit together. So which is kind of cool. And it's actually brought some pretty good moments that I will never forget. And but anyways, I'm gonna call it a night, guys. We went a little over an hour and 5 minutes. You can check me out here on Twitch at twitch.tv/thewrestlingangle1. You can check me out on Facebook with The Wrestling Angle 1. YouTube, The Wrestling Angle 1. Twitter, it's ECW, the number 4, LFE. That's ECW for life. And then you can also check me out on Instagram too, at ECW, the number 4, LFE. And I'm going to look for someone to raid. So if you could stay in here and we will check to see who we can raid here. Hold on 1 second, guys. We're going to raid this we're going to raid this girl that plays Call of Duty. She's really good at it too, so hold on 1 second. Oops. See if that works.